Hi there, so this is part 2 of saving data. So before I've shown you how to save integers and strings using just the, essentially user default.standard, and we're setting in a value for key. Let's go ahead and now save a image. So the first thing I'm going to do, just to set this up, I'm going to add a button here. I'm going to say this button, put image, and we're actually going to add an image to the assets. We're going to add an image of our favorite programming language, and we also have to add an image view, and this is all just to set up the whole scenario to show you how this works. And I'll show you how not to do it, and you'll see a crash. But let's finish setting up. So I'm going to go ahead and create a outlet for this. I'm going to call this just image view, I guess is fine. And we're going to create another variable that will hold the image. We're going to call this, I don't know, my image. My image is of type UI image. That's what you need to hold a variable. And we're going to make it an optional. That means it doesn't have to have a value, and we're going to initialize it as nil. That means it's empty. All right, and I think that's about it for setting up. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this app again, and let's see what it looks like. If you remember from last time, it looks something like this. And give it a second. The data is still there, by the way. I haven't put code for this, but again, if I change this to 4 and I press save and I quit the app out of memory, it should work. 4. Okay, so let's see how we're gonna do this so that it works with the image as well. So the first thing that we're gonna have to do here is actually, I didn't create an outlet for that. I didn't create an action for this. So the first thing I have to do is I'm going to create an action for this button right here. And I'm going to say put image button pressed. And we're going to put the code in here. All right, so what are we going to do? The first thing is we're going to, the variable that we created, my image, we're going to give it the value of Swift, which is the picture, and we're going to say image view dot image equals my image. So we're putting the picture in this variable, and we're taking the variable and putting in the image property of my image object. Okay, great. So now if I go ahead and launch the application and I put image, obviously it works. However, if I quit the app out of memory and I launch it again, the image is gone. So we want to save data. Okay, so this is where the fun starts. How do we do that? Well, you're thinking, okay, we'll just go to my save data and load data functions and just add an extra line here. By the way, we don't need to split the screen anymore. So let's go ahead and have one screen here. Okay, so all you have to do is all my store data dot set value for any, and what are we saving? We're saving this variable that holds the image called my image, you bet, and we're gonna create a string called save my image. This is obviously not gonna work. It's gonna crash, and you'll see why in a sec. You'll see how it crashes, and I'll explain why. And that's how you save it. And if you wanted to load it, you'd go if let load my image of type UI image equals user defaults dot standard dot value for key. We take this, we put it in here as UI image, and we say my image, assign it the value load my image. And this is what we've done with the other types of data, the ints and the strings, and it worked. Let's see if this works. This is actually going to crash as soon as I press the save button, because this thing right here is going to crash it. but it's going to go to the app delegate, and you'll see why in a sec. So I launch this, I press put image, it works. As soon as I press save, it crashes, and it crashes with this error right here, uncaught exception. And I'll tell you what the exception is here. I'll tell you why it crashed. Let me go ahead and stop this. It crashed because user default saves in the .plist, and the .plist does not know how to save data of type UI image. It just doesn't know how to do that. All right. So what are we gonna do? I'm gonna, by the way, comment this just so that you see the difference. Oh. And it's just really an extra line in each, the save and the load. And you'll see, I'm just gonna push this down so we have room. And the right way of doing it is this. The right way of doing it is, since user defaults cannot save type UI image, we're gonna have to archive it, or think of it as zipping it, hiding the type of data it is. So how do we do this? We're gonna create a constant. I'm gonna call it archived, and then usually the name of the variable that we're gonna archive, and we're gonna call up NSArchiver. NS stands for next step, and essentially it's, well, anyways, it's from the operating system that Apple bought like 20 years ago from Next, which Mac OS is built on, which which iOS is built on, and that's slowly changing as the years progress. But anyways, NSArchiver dot archive data with object, and the object is my image, and that's the first step. So let me just show you. So when we were saving my string and my number, it was only one line. This is going to require 2 lines. This first line is we're taking my image and we're archiving it. We're sort of zipping it, if you may, and we're saving that zip file in here. And when we zip something, and that's not the right word, but when we archive data, it becomes of type data. So if we archive strings or ints or doubles or an array or a dictionary or a UI image, it doesn't matter. It just becomes of type data. Cool. And now we're actually going to store it. We're going to go all store data dot set value, and we're going to save this thing right here, because my image was archived and saved in this variable. So we're going to save archive my image, and for the string, save my image. And that's pretty much it. We're done saving. So it's a 2-line step as opposed to a 1-line step. Okay, that's all you need to know for that. Now, how do we load it? Okay, so that's pretty easy too. Instead of 2 lines, it's going to be 3 lines. And you could probably already guess what we have to do. The first thing that we have to do is unarchive it. Okay, so watch. If let, I'm going to call this load my image of type data, okay, equals user defaults dot standard dot value for key, and the key is right here. We're gonna copy it as is. It has to be identical, and we're gonna typecast it as data. So here we typecast as int or string. Here we have to typecast as data. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna have to unarchive the data. So we're gonna say let, I add the word my, and then it's the name of the you could name this whatever, but this is just what I do. My loaded my image, it gets to be a mouthful, and we're gonna go assign this to ns key unarchiver dot unarchive object with data, and we're gonna unarchive this data right here. Okay, so we're gonna go load my image, and then we're gonna say my image equals my loaded my image, as we're gonna have to downcast this to UI image. Okay, so what did we do here? Let me go through it. So we archived my image. So think of it as archived, and it's saved in this constant called archive my image. And then we saved archive my image using this key, using the user default. When we came down here, we created this constant called load my image, and we loaded, essentially, we loaded this thing right here. We loaded the archive image. So archive image is now loaded in load my image, but load my image is archived. It's of type data. We don't want that type data. We want type UI image. So we took load my data, and we unarchived it, and we stored it in my loaded my loaded my image, and we took my loaded my image and we saved it in my image, and we told it what type of data it is once you unarchive it. And that should work. The only other thing that I think that we have to do here is actually tell it to actually launch in the save in the view.load. Yeah, so we're gonna have to add one more thing here. So we're loading data, we're putting whatever's in my string in this field, we're putting whatever in my number in here, and we're putting whatever in whatever in my image in the image view image property, my image, so that when all of this happens and it loads, the thing saves in here, and we'll put it in here. So let's go ahead and launch this, and this should work. Let me grab my simulator right here. Okay, put image, save, doesn't crash, that's a good sign. We quit. This is always the hardest part, to be honest. Double clicking is a hard thing. Of course. There we go. And if we launch it again, it automatically shows the image. So we saved it, we loaded it, and we're putting it in. All right, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching.